Mexico is building a $5 billion corridor. For decades, the Panama Canal has been the undisputed king of maritime trade routes. It has been the quickest way to get from the Atlantic to the Pacific, saving ships from the treacherous journey around South America. But now there's a new player entering the game, and it's coming from an unexpected place: Mexico. That's right. Our neighbors to the south are embarking on an ambitious $5 billion project that could reshape global trade as we know it. It's called the Inner Oceanic Corridor of the Isthmus of Tehuantepec, or CIT for short, and it's not just big, it's massive. But before we dive into this game-changing project, let's take a step back and look at how we got here. Back in the early 1900s, if you wanted to ship goods from New York to San Francisco, you had two options. You could send your cargo by land, across the vast expanse of North America, or you could put it on a ship and send it on a long, perilous journey around the southern tip of South America. Neither option was ideal. The land route was slow and expensive, while the sea route was dangerous and time-consuming. Ships had to navigate the treacherous Strait of Magellan, braving unpredictable storms and currents. Even for the fastest ships, this journey could take weeks. For most, it took months. But the United States had a bold plan to cut a canal right through the heart of Central America. The idea was simple: create a shortcut that would allow ships to pass directly from the Atlantic to the Pacific. In practice, it was anything but simple. The construction of the Panama Canal was a monumental undertaking. Workers had to blast through mountains, dig through jungles, and battle tropical diseases. The heat was oppressive, often reaching over 104 degrees Celsius. Landslides were a constant threat. But perhaps the biggest challenge was engineering a way for ships to traverse the elevation change. You see, the canal isn't just a straight cut through land, it's a complex system of locks that act like giant water elevators, lifting ships up and over the continental divide. Despite these challenges, after a decade of backbreaking work and at a cost of $375 million, about $1 billion in today's money, the Panama Canal officially opened in August 1914. It was a triumph of engineering and human will, instantly transforming global trade. Fast forward to today, and the Panama Canal is busier than ever. Over 10,000 ships pass through it each year, carrying more than 500 million tons of cargo. It's hard to overstate just how important this waterway is to global commerce. It's not just a shortcut, it's a vital artery of international trade. But here's the thing: the world has changed a lot since 1914. Ships have gotten bigger, trade volumes have exploded, and the Panama Canal, despite expansions and upgrades, is starting to show its limitations. Now, enter Mexico with a bold plan of its own. Back in 1884, Mexico had a new president, Porfirio Diaz, and he had a vision to build a railway that would connect the Atlantic to the Pacific. It was an ambitious plan, but Diaz was determined to make it happen. And he did. On January 3rd, 1907, 7 years before the Panama Canal opened, the first train rolled down the tracks of the Tren Interoceanico. Suddenly, Mexico was at the center of global trade. Hundreds of thousands of tons of cargo moved across this railway, boosting Mexico's economy and putting it on the world stage. But then, in 1914, the Panama Canal opened, and just like that, the tide turned. Shipping companies abandoned the Mexican railway in droves. Within a year, cargo volumes had dropped by nearly 80%. The once bustling railway fell into disrepair, a forgotten relic of a bygone era. For over a century, it lay dormant. But sometimes, old ideas have a way of coming back around. Fast forward to 2018, and Mexico has a new president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and he has a vision that echoes the past: to revive Mexico's old railway line and create a modern corridor between the Atlantic and the Pacific, a 21st century challenger to the Panama Canal. But this isn't just a renovation of the old railway, it's a complete reimagining. The plan calls for not one, but 3 main rail lines stretching over 1,000 kilometers. It's a massive undertaking with an equally massive price tag: $5 billion. In June 2020, work began. Old tracks were ripped up, vegetation cleared, and shiny new rails laid down. The president even deployed the army to seize control of a section of the old railway that was owned by a private company. It was a controversial move, but it showed just how committed he was to seeing this project through. Wait a minute, a railway to compete with a canal? How does that work? We're talking about two very different modes of transportation, but the CIT isn't just a railway, it's a comprehensive transportation corridor. Yes, there will be trains, but there will also be highways running parallel to the tracks, and at either end of the corridor, modern high-capacity ports. The idea is to create a seamless system where cargo can be quickly unloaded from ships, placed on trains or trucks, and whisked across the isthmus. On the other side, it's loaded onto another ship and sent on its way. If all goes according to plan, this journey could be even faster than going through the Panama Canal, and speed isn't the only advantage. Remember those big ships I mentioned earlier, the ones that are too large for the Panama Canal? They could use the CIT. Cargo would be unloaded on one coast, transported across land, and loaded onto another ship on the opposite coast. It's not as convenient as sailing straight through, but it's a lot better than going all the way around South America. If this project becomes a reality, the CIT could create up to 500,000 jobs and attract around $50 billion in international investment for a region that's long been economically disadvantaged. That's way too good to pass. And Mexico reclaiming its place on the global stage, well, that's an opportunity they can't afford to miss. Now, what does this mean for the Panama Canal? Is this the end of an era? The short answer is probably not, at least not right away. The folks behind the CIT have been clear they're not trying to replace the Panama Canal. Instead, they see their project as complementary. You see, the Panama Canal, despite its importance, is often stretched to its limits. It can handle about 4 million cargo containers a year, but demand often exceeds that. In 2023, Panama experienced its driest season on record, forcing authorities to limit the canal's operation. They had to reduce the number of ships allowed through each day from 40 to just 25. This led to a bidding war with companies paying millions for a coveted slot. Other ships were left waiting their turn, causing delays and disruptions in global supply chains. This is where the CIT could really shine. By providing an alternative route, it could help alleviate pressure on the Panama Canal. It could provide a backup option during dry seasons or when the canal is undergoing maintenance. In essence, the CIT and the Panama Canal could work together to increase the overall capacity and efficiency of trade routes between the Atlantic and Pacific. But make no mistake, while they might not be direct competitors now, the potential for competition is there. If the CIT proves to be faster and more cost-effective, it could start to draw significant traffic away from the Panama Canal. This could force Panama to innovate and improve its own operations, which could be a win for global trade overall. And let's not forget, the CIT isn't just about cargo. In December 2023, the first passenger train started running on one of the completed lines. This opens up new possibilities for tourism and regional connectivity. It's not hard to imagine a future where travelers can hop on a train and cross from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific in a matter of hours, taking in the diverse landscapes of southern Mexico along the way. So what does all this mean for the future of global trade? Well, if there's one thing we can say for certain, it's that change is coming. Mexico is stepping up and asserting itself as a major player. But for now, keep an eye on Visionary. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it's all set. Until next time.